Hello everybody. This is Gagarin News with our regular show Cryptocurrencies Not For Dummies. Let's go. Hello.
How to fix the problem of buying votes in DAOs.
There is a solution and that cannot fail to delight. The first solution, which has already been tested, is border governance. What does border governance consist of? First, use on-chain governance for applications only but not for basic layers. An example is Ethereum, which is governed by off-chain governance. At the same time, there are applications on Ethereum which are governed by on-chain governance. The second solution is governance that does not rely on coins. This includes governance models that are not coin voting based. But if coins do not determine the position of the user, what does? There are two alternatives. First is the personality verification system, which checks if people match their accounts, so one person can get one vote. As you understand, it contradicts the principles of anonymity. The second one is the proof of participation, which is the system that checks that an account matches a person who took part in some event, did some useful work inside the ecosystem, etc. This model uses delegates, and it's very much likely how elections in the USA work. There are some hybrid governance models, for example, quadratic Bitcoin voting, in which each elector's power is proportional to the square root of the number of assets he uses to take part in voting. To prevent people from dividing their assets into different accounts, there has to be personal verification. Existing financial component allows users to signal reliably how much they care about the problem and about the ecosystem. Quadratic voting is an example of such a concept of alternative DAO which is developing nowadays. Proof of participation is less clear. The main problem is to determine a degree of participation. A reliable governance model is necessary. It is possible that the easiest solution is manual governance conducted by 10 to 100 elected users and then eventual decentralization because elections for round N determine the rules for the next round. The possibility of a fork help defines a way to recover an incentive against leaving the current governance system. Checks and balances. Proof of participation does not require a mechanism for collusion prevention to guarantee that non-monetary resources that are used to get voting rights remain non-monetary and do not sell powers to whoever pays the most. The third possible option, which is not limited voting, not a coin voting, and not a hybrid model, is a concept that is called skin in the game. It is obvious that coin voting is failing because while voters hold collective responsibility for their decisions and bad decisions, in particular, each voter does not hold individual responsibility. If some bad proposal passes, its opponents suffer as much as its enthusiasts. Can we create a voting system that will change this dynamic and make voters individually responsible for their decisions? It is a good question, and the important point here is friendliness to forks. Friendliness to fork is the strategy, skin in the game. If a bad decision was made and it cannot be disputed inside the protocol, users can create a fork. Coins that were voting for the bad decisions will be destroyed during the fork. It is a mechanism for firefighting and removing unwanted elements. You just delete what was unfair and create your own blockchain. This is called the fork wars. When there is a dispute inside a community, it can often lead to a fork. It's not always bad, it's a feature of decentralization. Anyone can make a snapshot of your blockchain and start from this point. If a community thinks that some governance decision was incorrect, they may want to diverge the network. I hope you all know what a fork is. Shout out to non-dummies. Yes.
What other forms of DAO are there? And what is DSO?
There are other forms. DSO is one such concept. There is a company, Kraus House, which began to implement this concept. This company wants to buy an NBA team and let their fans own the team. It is worth mentioning that right now NBA teams are already governed by a slightly democratic model, but the centralization inside the NBA is still very high. Unfortunately, fans have a limited number of means by which they can interact with their favorite team. This fan ownership is a very important feature of Web3. A lot of athletes are already interacting with their community in a similar way. There are several pro or semi-pro teams that are governed by fans, for example, Green Bay Packers, who offer their fans an option to buy a fraction of their business on the market, but it is far from the real decentralization we all strive for. I'm not talking about anonymity, at least decentralization. NBA is arranged in such a way that there is a parent company, and there are franchises that are 30 teams. The average value per team is around $2.2 billion, and they all are under the control of the NBA. Each team has its general manager, which deals with negotiations and management, buys players, and hires coaches. Candidates for the GM position should have some experience in this field, either a former player or a coach. We can take his role and redistribute all his activities to many smaller roles that will govern this fan community. Commissioner in NBA deals with parental company supervision and operates as head of the supervisory board on the board of directors. This is much more democratic than in the NFL, and it creates a positive start for DAO creation. This idea does not seem insane. The current governing model of the NBA can be easily converted to DAO. We have to understand that each NBA team has a lot of owners. For example, Mickey Arison is a stakeholder in Miami Heat, and he is often mentioned as a sole owner of a club, but frankly speaking, the club has many minor investors and stakeholders. Unfortunately, these minor investors do not take part in management decision-making, business development, or negotiations. It gives the opportunity to grant control over these clubs to a large number of people and redistribute the role of GM among community members. However, during the transition period, we will still need to build on the existing hierarchy. There are two types of governance models Kraushaus considers: DAO governance and team governance. Team governance may be a rather complex endeavor, so we will have to divide one DAO into two sub-DAO. One for team management and the second for DAO management, like a parent company. Imagine an organization in which there is a parent company and a subsidiary. Accordingly, we divide their responsibilities between two DAOs. Sport is a quite profitable industry, and we understand how much sport depends on its fans. For me, it's a great use case, and it can serve as a catalyst for decentralization and cryptocurrency integration into the multi-billion sports industry. This was our regular irregular show, Cryptocurrencies Not For Dummies. See you soon.